Bob Trask, this is our weekly reset. Thanks for being with me. Let's start with a brief meditation. If you'll just close your eyes, begin breathing gently in through your nose, and be comfortable wherever you are. And together, let's just sink into that deep sea of pure grace, of acceptance, of knowing that all is well. For just this little bit, let's forget about the problems of the world and the problems of our lives. Let's just be at peace, breathing gently in through your nose and feeling each breath as though it were perfect grace. And that grace is peace. And that peace is flooding into every cell of your being. And waking up each of those cells with a smile so that they all are singing in harmony with all of the rest of the cells of your body. And so that each of those cells is filled with relaxation and peace and healing. And so for this few moments while we're meditating, can you know that your body is whole, perfect, and complete exactly the way it is? Knowing that brings about the reality of that you are whole, you are perfect, and you are complete exactly the way you are. Just for this little bit, let's know that. And that this magnificent universe is perfectly balanced, isn't it? All of the galaxies, all of the nebulae, all of the planets and the solar systems, the tides, the winds, the oceans, the snowy mountaintops, the great red-tailed hawk hanging on the breeze above the desert. All of those are in perfect balance. And as an incarnation of light, as an incarnation of that great spirit, you are so also in balance. And your body is perfect, exactly the way it is. And if you can breathe in that assurance right now, you can begin to transform your life. That you are whole, perfect, and complete. Right now. And when you come back to us, come back bringing this whole perfect, complete self. Thank you. Well, today is the last day of the year, the very last day of this year. And so it's an opportunity for us to see whether or not this year was a win or a loss, or how many wins or how many losses. You know, in a poll done by a whole lot of different newspapers, it was found that the thing people most desired in their lives, was self-confidence. That's kind of surprising, isn't it? You'd think they'd be desiring, most people would be desiring better health or more wealth or better relationships. But most people wanted more self-confidence. Self-confidence. And there's only a couple of ways that we have of building more self-confidence. But I have to tell you, the first one is this, before we go into either of the two. The first one is this: do we want more self-confidence? Or are we more content in living beneath the light which shines into us? Because there's a light shining into us. There's a powerful light shining into us. We are like those beautiful prisms that hang in the window. And the sun shining into that prism brings out all of these multiple colors, and they all shine on the far wall. Each of those colors, if you look at them carefully, there's no colors like them. You can't replicate any of those colors. They're magnificent. And they blend one into the other so flawlessly, so perfectly. Yet you could never paint anything like that. It's too magical. It's too ethereal. And you and I are crystals. And the light of the universe, the light of the creative power, the creative mind that some people call God, that great spiritual, powerful mind that is in all things. I don't mean, if you got to hear what I'm saying there, I didn't say it's creating all things, because then that would indicate that the creator's over here and the creation is over here. But that's not true. The creator is the creation. The tree that is being created is the creator itself. Each element of this universe is, in the fact of being created, the creator itself. And you, my dear heart, are the creator itself. Every cell of your body, every neuron, magical, mysterious, incredible neuron in your brain, in your heart, in your gut, each one of those neurons is in fact the creator. But you and I are given in this incarnation choices. We can choose how we want to think. We can choose how we want to believe. And there are no limits in this incredible universe of imagination. You can imagine anything. And you do, don't you? You do imagine anything. You imagine the worst things that can happen. You imagine the best things that can happen. You imagine fantasy things that don't. And all of those things that you imagine, all of those things, your brain, your poor brain, thinks are real. Did you know that? They think the brain doesn't know the difference between that which you imagine and that which is real. It doesn't know the difference. So the brain believes whatever you imagine. Stick with me for a minute. Let's pretend that we were magnificent. Let's imagine for a moment that we had unlimited self-confidence. Let's imagine that we knew we were miracle workers. Miracle workers. Let's imagine for a minute that there's no thing that we could not accomplish. Nothing in terms of our health, our wealth, our relationships, our spirituality, our creativity, our jobs, imagine that there's nothing that we could not that we could not create, that we could not bring into existence. The brain doesn't know the difference. The brain doesn't know the difference. But we don't feed ourselves with that magnificent imagination of what could be. We feed our brains instead with our memories. Because you see, the brain doesn't know anything beyond its memories. The brain is a repository. It's like this enormous library, your subconscious mind, of all the things you've ever experienced and what were your judgments of those experiences at the time. What were those judgments of you? So when you were a little kid, when you were like 4 or 5 years old, 6 years old, 7 years old, just a little kid, you had experiences. And a lot of those experiences came from your parents or from other authority figures that told you who you were. Now, look at you. Just look at you. Shame on you. That became part of your identity. Your identity was forming at that time, and it was forming through experiences. And the experiences of elder people, of wiser people, we now know they weren't so much wiser, but at that time they were wiser people. Those experiences, those decisions about them, about who you were, went inside of you, and they became part of your identity. And listen to me now. Then what you began to do is replicate those experiences so that you could validate your identity. And the reason you wanted to validate your identity is because it's who you thought you were, your ego. And so you don't want to violate your ego and discard who you think you are, because it's a form of death. If I get rid of who I think I am, then I die, then I don't exist. So I have to continue to replicate who I think I am. So throughout your whole life, you've been building and building and building and building on all the things that you thought you were. And I have to tell you, none of them are true. You can pick up a book, a great fiction novel, and read that novel and get caught up in it, and just get caught up in it and empathize with the protagonist and with the victims, and just be so involved in that book. And then when you finish it and put it down, and you put it away and it's gone, and that's no longer who you are. But it doesn't happen that way. In our lives, we continue to build on those things. And then what happens to our self-confidence? Our self-confidence is the dependent upon how we're thinking about ourselves. And that's true. And that's so today I'm going to talk about how we can change that self-thought so that we can begin to build more self-confidence, because self-confidence is not a destination. Self-confidence is a journey. We're all climbing this mountain together. And for some people, it's a real struggle. All they're seeing is the rocks and the steepness of the trail and the obstacles and counting the times they've slipped and fallen. And others are looking at the grass and the wildflowers and the gorgeous trees and the hot, deep blue sky overhead. Others are looking at that. It's up to you. You can just depend. You're at choice. You can depend on how you want to look at this. But if you're going to build self-confidence, then you need to start looking at the beauty. And you need to know that building self-confidence is, in fact, a journey up the mountain. And there's no end to it. It's about constantly growing, constantly learning, and striving to be the best version of yourself. Earl Nightingale said, "Our attitude towards life determines life's attitude toward us." Now, I have a question. How in the world can we possibly build self-confidence if we don't own our wins? And the question also is, how many times during this past year did you win? Now you look back in this past year and you can say, well, boy, I had some problems. I mean, there were some difficulties. I was up against it. I mean, I was up against it in terms of relationships and health and wealth. And I had some really tough times this past year. I'd like to not go through that again. Hang on a minute. Hang on a minute. How many times did you come out of those scraps whole, well, and complete? You won. Let's not look at the stumble that you had on the trail. That stumble was there because it was part of building your strength to climb the mountain, your wisdom that you needed to be able to stay on the path. Every single thing that happened to you for reason, for purpose, for meaning. And we can't possibly go on building self-confidence if we have a self-talk that doesn't tell us how wonderful we are and who we are and what we think we've done. Our self-talk describes to us again and again who we are, again and again how we are in the world around us, both good and bad. It anchors inside of us an extremely limited self-identity, extremely limited self-identity. That identity is the same one that we were building starting when we were little kids. And the question to us today is, do we want to be making decisions about our adult lives based on the opinions of a 4 or 5-year-old? But that's what's happening. We have to be willing to change those old identities by knowing that the people who gave us those self-identities were wrong. Did they love us? Oh, yeah, my mom and dad loved me. Oh, did they love you? Yeah. Your grandpa and your grandma? Oh, absolutely. They loved you. They loved you as much as it's possible to love. But the way they were raised is that they were scolded, sometimes spanked, told they were naughty, to get them to get in line with the rest of society. Me, I don't remember how many times I heard, or probably you heard, so you don't want to do that. Well, I don't want to do what I want to do either today. I don't want to go to work. You think I want to go to work? I don't want to go to work. I have to go to work to support this family. And you have to do things you don't want to do. That's the way life is. We have to do things we don't want to do. Well, wait a minute now. Wait a minute. How about wanting to do the things that we're doing? How about that? Instead of feeling penalized by having to go to school, how about wanting to go to school? How about being, and when you're an adult, how about instead of feeling penalized at having to go to a job, how about feeling blessed and honored by being able to have a job? And if you don't like the job that you're in, and if you can't stand your employer or your boss, how about changing jobs? Well, that's easy to say, but you can't just go get another job. There's not that many jobs available. How do you know? Have you applied? Have you made out a resume? Have you shopped around? You don't know. You just make up a decision. And the decision comes from the mind of a 4 or 5 year old or a 6 or 7 year old. And another thing that we have to do if we're going to build self confidence is we have to stop comparing ourselves with each other. We're not in competition here. I can't compare myself with you. How could we compare ourselves? We're not all playing the same game. If we were all playing basketball, I could compare my ability with yours, but we're not all playing the same game. I'm playing Bob Trask, and you're playing you. We can't compare ourselves to each other because this entire universe, there's never been another you. There's never been another you. You're the only you that's ever been. No one else has ever seen through your eyes or heard through your ears. You've created a reality that's solely your own. And your self confidence relies on you being 100% okay with you as you, never compared to anyone else. What's true is that losers focus on winners while winners are focusing on winning. Nito Kibens said that winners compare their achievements with their goals, while losers compare their achievements with those of other people. Now, what if your goal today is to build more self-confidence? What if that's your goal today? What if that's your goal for this next year, to build more self-confidence? Then you stop letting other people erode your self-confidence by their comments about you. You create healthy boundaries. Healthy boundaries. There's someone in your life who dismisses you or makes you feel bad about yourself. Please construct a healthy boundary between you and that person to keep their debilitating ideas from reaching you and touching you. That's nature, right? That's nature. All the creatures in nature have boundaries, like an octopus and so many other creatures going across the floor bottom of the ocean have the ability to change colors and camouflage themselves and to look like rocks or to look like coral. How do they do that? They do that because those are their natural boundaries. Little baby birds are taken care of by their parents. Baby everythings are taken care of by their parents. Those are the boundaries. How about you being able to build as an adult boundaries around that precious, precious child that lives inside of you that you are? How about you being the parent who protects that, who stops people from banging into you and running over you? Just build some boundaries. When someone puts you up, these are another ways that we build unhealthy boundaries. When someone puts you up, when somebody says, God, you did a great job of that, or somebody says, wow, you look beautiful today, you look so handsome today, somebody says, God, I just love the way you accomplished that, do you say to yourself, um, I could have done better, or well, yeah, I don't know, because Your self-identity is not that of a winner. Your self-identity is not that. Your self-confidence or lack of self-confidence won't allow you to be that champion. So instead you say, oh, I could have done better, or or do you say thank you? Thank you for noticing. I am doing well, aren't I? Is it okay to say that? Or do you feel like you'd be bragging? What you'd actually feel like doing maybe is stepping outside of your comfort zone. You feel comfortable being less than who you really are. So I'm asking you to step outside your comfort zone. Don't you think it'd be a good idea for each of us to start off this next year with powerful affirmation? A powerful affirmation that says, instead of I'm not sure I can do this, or I'm not sure I can do that, to say, I'm confident I can do this. I'm confident I can win. I'm confident I can overcome that. And when you're challenged and things are really tough, you don't have enough money to pay the rent, and you don't know where it's come from. I'm confident I can work this out. I'm confident I can work this out. Because if you look back over your life, how many times you were in self-doubt and you always won, always, 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 always won. How many times do you have to do that before you finally get that you're a winner, that you're winning all the time? So if you say, I'm confident that I can, then your behavior and your actions will also change and will become affirmative, become life-changing. And you'll find new arenas in life that you don't even right now know exist. Charles Kingsley said, the only way to achieve the impossible is to believe it's possible. So you're in charge now. I'm in charge now. And we can make this next year the one where we stepped off the platform and onto the train of life, fully lived. Roy Bennett said, attitude is a choice. Attitude is a choice. Happiness is a choice. Optimism is a choice. Kindness is a choice. Giving is a choice. Respect is a choice. Whatever choice you make makes you. So choose wisely. And the great football coach Vince Lombardi said, winning is not a sometimes thing. It's an all the time thing. You don't win once in a while. You don't do things right once in a while. You do them right all the time. Winning is a habit. And I want to tell you today that the attitude of knowing you're winning is a habit. Just to know you're winning all the time is a habit. Get into that habit. Start telling yourself the truth. And here's your homework for this week. Get a pencil and paper and recall as many as possible of the challenges that you faced and overcame in this last year. And the challenges that you made and overcame this last year. And then rate 1 to 10 on a scale of 1 to 10, just put down a number. Your attitude about yourself before each of those events and your attitude about yourself after each of those events. And if you could see that your attitude before the events, for instance, was a 5, and your attitude after the event was a 5, then you didn't grow through that event through knowing that you won. So you need to change how you see yourself in those situations. But if your attitude was 5 in the beginning and an 8 afterwards, you're growing. You're growing. You're letting each of those events and each of those wins grow you. So that's your homework. Absolutely do that. Do that. And you'll see that your faith in yourself was always the determining factor and how things played out. And acknowledge that sometimes we get blindsided by events that we didn't know were coming and they could destroy us. But in looking at your paper, you'll also see that your attitude constantly had a chance to create more self-confidence. And it was always your choice to become the creator of your personal reality or the results of whatever happened to you. That's how we build greater self-confidence, by looking at our attitudes in each situation and seeing how they decided our results and our feelings about ourselves. Great tennis player Billie Jean King said, "A champion is afraid of losing. A champion is afraid of losing. Everyone else is afraid of winning." Don't be afraid of winning. Build your self-confidence in this next year. I believe in you, and I love you. If this talk has been valuable to you, would you please give back a little by going to my website, bobtrask.com, and leaving a donation so I can keep building these weekly resets? I would very much appreciate it if you do. Thank you. Thank you. And if you have to go now, I totally understand, but just know that if we're going to be around here for a little while talking and and discussing some of the things that we've learned today. And if you want to stick around, please do. And if you have to go, I understand. Please go with my love, and I'll see you next